Mission Innovation, Becoming a Frontier Agency, presented by Microsoft. Cyber and AI professionals across government say they're taking a two-pronged approach to AI in the security realm. One is how AI can help secure systems. The other is how to secure the AI applications themselves. Robert Costello is Chief Information Officer at the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. Steve Faehl is U.S. Government Security Leader at Microsoft. Gentlemen, welcome. Thanks for joining me. Bob, I start with you. How are you approaching each of those prongs in the AI and security realm?
Thanks, Francis. So actually, it's, I'm always excited to describe what we're doing at CISA, and I do get to work with what I think is, the best workforce in the world. So it's very interesting being the CIO there, having to deploy technologies for people that's job is to advise on how to secure technologies. And we have, such great technical expertise. So I think first and foremost, there's almost a third element to me, which is kind of workforce. Like, how do we train people? How do we educate them on using the new tooling? And then how do we expand out and set a great example from CISA on how to deploy new technologies securely and effectively. So I think on one part, it's really enabling my defensive cyber operations group to not just advise, but to be consumers of artificial intelligence solutions. We've implemented some new tooling in our ATO process that is actually using AI to help us write control statements to get things out faster, so that in the hands of the operators. We're using some AI in our penetration testing work as well, so that I can, constantly test our systems. I think on the other front, one of the things that you have to do, and I heard, some of the other interviewees talk about it too, is, we have to get our data ready. We have a lot of data at CISA on our infrastructure security side, emergency comm side, and then, of course, on our cyber side. Some of those are in systems that are 20 plus years old. So we're spending a lot of work on getting that data AI ready, modernizing our systems so that AI can be used effectively, because you can modernize anything and sometimes make it worse through that process. I can make any process go faster through IT. It doesn't always mean that I'm getting the right answers out of it. But I think, I'll circle back to just the first part too. There's a lot of training for our workforce and a lot of working together to actually understand what problem do you want to solve. Because in some cases, AI may not be the best solution to that problem. And we really want to work with our customers very rapidly to understand what their requirements are so that we can solve them quickly, whether through AI or sometimes more traditional IT means.
Steve, welcome. It's great to see you again. What are you seeing agencies doing that are taking on kind of the same issues that Bob's taking on at CISA regarding securing the AI, but also using the AI to secure the system more broadly?
Thanks, Francis. Good to see you as well. As we've worked with agencies really across the federal government, we focus on those two prongs that you mentioned. And I'll also add a third as we talk through in the conversation. There's the security with AI, which is really around the leaps and bounds of progress that we're making on cybersecurity, leveraging AI. There's the security of AI, which is those systems themselves, and how do we ensure that they're functioning as intended, as desired. And then there's security from AI. What happens when an adversary leverages AI? And so the first thing that we really get straight with agencies is, which problem are we trying to solve? Mm-hmm. And so it starts in that pragmatic grounding of which problem are we trying to solve, and how can we really address that in a way that's most risk appropriate for the agency and really take advantage of the opportunity to transform their operations. And cybersecurity is a field that is in desperate need of transformation. As we work, day in, day out, defenders need every advantage they can get. And thankfully, there's a lot of advantage that comes with AI. We use it in different modalities. And so sometimes it's just an assistant to the cybersecurity professional, providing expertise in areas where maybe they don't have it. And sometimes it's a fully specialized system that can go and perform tasks on behalf of the security teams to help them scale.
So you used a couple of terms there that I think are important to light on for a couple of minutes. Security from AI implies to me the adversary's AI. Do I understand you correctly
Yes.
on that? Okay, so with that being the context, that's one I'm sure that you deal with all the time too. We'll come back to what CISA is doing and how you're working through that, because I'm real curious about that. But and then you also use the term defenders, defending from those attacks that AI is generating. How's that different? How are those attacks different than the types of attacks that for so long had to be done manually, had to be done by a human sitting in front of a computer in some country that doesn't like us?
Well, what's remarkable is that when you look at an ideal adversary campaign, the goal is to perform as well as the humans do. And so the great news for cybersecurity professionals is the lessons that we've learned over the last 20 years are absolutely applicable here and still pertain to the new world in which adversaries are primarily using AI to become more productive. And so that's where there really is an impetus. It's been a challenge for cyber defenders to keep up with the pace of accelerating threats. And so while the adversaries are taking advantage of AI, what we can see is that really defenders have a greater opportunity. We believe that AI can not just level the playing field, but actually give defender advantage. A very simple example of that would be thinking about vulnerabilities. Traditionally, it's been a very asymmetric challenge where adversaries need to find one vulnerability and the defenders need to find every vulnerability because you don't know which one the attacker is going to pick. And so that's been a very asymmetric equation that puts the defender at a significant disadvantage. But as we create better detection of vulnerabilities with AI, now the attacker and the defender really have the same capability, and the defender is able to proactively do work and get out in front. So we believe there's a tremendous possibility of transformation when it comes to cybersecurity.
So when Steve explains it like that, Bob, it makes it a lot more clear to me, not that it wasn't before, but it's more clear to me now why you added that workforce prong and want to make sure that you're training your folks that they can fully leverage those kinds of tools.
Absolutely. And as Steve brought up too, I think one of the things I'm excited about too, for a long time it was patch every vulnerability, patch it as quickly as possible. And that's really hard on the operations teams. It's really hard on the defender teams. Where I'm excited for some of our work, and we're seeing it across the spectrum, is things are compromised or vulnerabilities are exploited by the adversary a lot faster than they used to be. It could be minutes from disclosure or seconds. But what's really important is, am I even vulnerable to this vulnerability? Or am I not vulnerable to that vulnerability? But there's three things that would actually be classified as low criticality, but when they're chained together, the adversary can then do something on the system. So what I'm excited about is we're starting to get to the point where we can prioritize our teams better using tools that have AI enabled in them, get better visibility into our environments, into our networks through modeling that we're doing quite extensively now. And that's where I'm excited, because it is an exhausting job working in a security operations center, working on an O&M team, constantly patching. And we're not saying don't patch, believe me, we want you to patch quickly. But it's important to be able to prioritize and then apply prioritizations to the work that your teams are doing. And I think the other thing that we're seeing too, the adversary is using AI to become more relatable in some cases. I've seen some phishing emails, and in fact, my family got hit with one, and I'm like, wow, that was really good. It really looked like it came from your bank. It knew quite a bit about you. Mm-hmm. There were no English errors at all in the email. And I can just imagine, like, I'm trained to look at this. I kind of do it every day, but to the average person, they're not. So we're definitely seeing the adversary take advantage of AI in that fashion. But I think Steve's absolutely right. I think the defenders can use AI for substantial advantage.
So getting ahead of the curve, Steve, is something that we've been talking about in this space in the federal government for 15 or 20 years. What's it going to take for the defenders to at least reach par with the attackers? What's driven this, and what gives you hope that we're kind of at that stage?
Well, I believe we're at a time when the risks are truly realized, and it's been a journey to get there. And I think now cyber defenders realize that the task that is in front of them and the enormity of that task is, do we have an inventory of our assets? I was thinking as Bob was talking, do we have an inventory of our assets? Yes. Is that inventory correct? Well, how do I know
Yeah.
We hope.
if it's correct or not? If the attacker discovers something in inventory that I don't know about, does it matter if I've patched everything in inventory, right? So cyber is a complex, layered problem that's very difficult to enumerate and very difficult to say I have gotten to 100%. 100% is somewhat mythical in cybersecurity, but when it comes to understanding your environment, understanding the data that you have, there's a tremendous amount of security data that's within the U.S. government, thanks to a lot of the great work that's been done in zero trust, both from the Department of War as well as from CISA. NIST has given great guidance. As we look at agencies moving down that path, they have more and more security data every day. It's leveraging that data to have more insights into your environment, to understand it better than the adversary does. That's really important. And I think finally, there's enough data to have sort of passed that hurdle of I think I'm good. We have this term watermelon green, and the idea is it's green on the outside and it's red on the inside. And many of the metrics that we've had in cybersecurity, it's very easy to say, oh, we're green on that metric, but the reality is that there's a challenge there. There's an opportunity for an attacker there that's masked because there isn't enough data. Thanks to the zero trust work that's been done, now there's enough data to say we can now enumerate a lot of what this problem space is. And with AI, hopefully we can understand it and take the necessary actions.
Does that mean, and I'll ask you this, but I want to get your input on it too. Does that mean that you're thinking about your risk framework differently, that you're prioritizing risk differently than you did before?
It is, and I think one of the things that I'm excited about really being enabled to work in a different fashion. Most recently, I think we are now able, like we used to authorize systems for 3 years and then would kind of look at them every 3 years. How are they doing? Now, to Steve's point, we're collecting so much telemetry, the ability to synthesize that with new tooling and actually get, an up to the second risk posture of a system is really fascinating to me and also exciting because it's kind of been that nirvana that we've always wanted. At DHS, I get to serve a couple of roles, but we're also the authorizing official as the CIO. So I have to accept the risk of all our IT environments. Sometimes that was more of a gut reaction on how I think the system is. Now I'm actually able to kind of dive down deep into it. I think the zero trust work has been critical to that. But to be able to actually see what is normal for a system, what is not normal, what are people doing in the system, what is the system to system traffic and interactions looking like, have been really exciting. So it does allow us to make, I think, better risk decisions. I think the other thing, through all of this, you can't be afraid to try. We have to constantly innovate, fail fast, pick ourselves up when the project wasn't that great, and not, I always use the term that one of my mentors used when I worked for him, stop admiring the problem. Try something, try and solve it. It's okay if it doesn't work. Try something else. And I think we're seeing more and more of that on the federal side to move a lot faster.
Yeah, and that's where I was going to go next, Steve. It strikes me that Bob and his colleagues and peers across government can make these decisions and see these problems much, much faster than they were ever able to before.
Absolutely. And I think as we look at what it takes to field new capability, traditionally, it's been a very expensive exercise to say, I'm going to field new cyber capability. Could be months, could be years until that capability has efficacy. But with AI tooling, effectively the protocol for communication now is human language. And so we've lowered that bar. Earlier in some of the interviews talking about the democratization of data, we've also really democratized capability for IT systems. And so when we look at new AI capabilities, rule of thumb when my team's working on a new AI capability, a new tool, if you can't get to 80% in 20 minutes, maybe you want to move on. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit. There are a lot of low-risk things that can be done that have high value, high efficacy, reducing the cost for defenders, increasing the cost for attackers, really winning that economic warfare of cybersecurity. And so, that litmus test, if this doesn't work, move on. Fail fast, move to the next thing. It's absolutely worth it.
You're nodding very enthusiastically.
Big believer in that.
Yeah. How are you using these tools to be able to drive that culturally, to get your people, you talked about the workforce earlier, to get people to think differently, that now we can do things in a different way?
I think it's hard, and I think one of the first things is like everyone wants to know that their leader has their back. So I got to not just say that, I got to support my team through it. It's okay if the project failed or that initiative didn't quite work out. I think the other thing, and Steve hit on a couple things, like IT's changed so much, like, since I joined the Air Force as something called a tech controller and worked on very old systems at the time. Things advanced very quickly. When I was kind of a hands-on keyboard doing some of this work, I had to learn like 3 different query languages, depending on what vendor's tool you were using. Now we're making it so you can ask a question in plain language, and get a response. But you still have to understand what questions to ask, how to phrase them. You have to understand the technology and the data still. So it's allowing us to maybe take our teams in a different direction in a training way than we had in years past. And then the other thing I concentrate on too is no one, Steve mentioned something to you, your attack surface until you don't, until something was deployed that you didn't know about or an asset appeared that wasn't coordinated. One of the things that I think is really critical for federal CIOs is you have to be an office that people want to work with, or they will find a way to do it themselves. A lot of programs have their own funding, they'll deploy their own technologies, and then we're dealing with like the rogue IT issue. So I think it's being very open to listening. What problem do you want to solve? And then making sure that people get the tools quickly to do it, because we have to move at the pace of the adversary. And I think also we have to be very willing to try new things, try a new tool, try a new solution. And then we have great partnerships. Microsoft is one of them. We have moved now into the cloud world, the software as a service world. It is a shared operating model between us and our vendors. And it's really exciting to just kind of see as things shift, information sharing, as well as just how we both can interpret the same telemetry, but sometimes a little bit differently based on our own knowledge base.
Bob, Steve, great to have both of you on the program. Thanks very much for joining me today.